TikTok live. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Lock 22's Idiots Over Washington's Antics or Iowa. You can say idiots out walking around. You can say Iowans over Washington's antics, whatever suits your motherfucking needs. All right, we got Major Tommy here. We got Uncle Russ, and wow, you notice a fourth person here. This is Charlie Wishman. Charlie, tell the folks what your job is and what you don't have to go into all of it, but introduce
Sure.
yourself.
No. So first of all, I'm Major Tommy's son. I'm Russ, Uncle Russ's nephew, and I'm Damon's brother. So that's the most important part of it. Now, when it comes to what I do for a living, so I have the honor and privilege of serving as the president of the Iowa Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO. And real briefly, what the AFL-CIO is, it's not actually a union per se. It's the coalition of unions, and it exists at a local level, it exists at state levels, and there's a national organization as well. So that's where we come together and try and work towards the same goals and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Thank you and welcome. And welcome everybody who's watching after the fact on YouTube, and welcome to everybody that's watching live on TikTok. I'm sorry I can't get to your questions live. It's just not possible right now. There's too much going on, and yeah, we got a time limit here. We're on the 30-minute clock. You guys see this this thing behind me?
It's a flag.
Yeah, it is a flag.
It's our flag.
You know what? It has become a symbol for the Republican Party only. I'm taking it back.
Amen.
Taking it back. You can be a patriot and you can be a Democrat at the same time. My first question of the night comes to Charlie. Iowa Federation of Labor sounds like way above anything that I could possibly fathom doing myself. What does a Trump presidency mean to you and the people that you represent?
Well, so first of all, I fly an American flag as well, when appropriate, and also the flag of the Irish Brigade as well from the Union Army. However, what does a Trump presidency mean? It actually means undoing some of what I just talked about. The cause of civil rights, let's just start with there, and democracy. I mean, like, Americans, you get people who talk about civil war and all these kinds of things. I don't understand if they really know what it actually means. We had 600,000 Americans slaughtered each other wholesale for 4 years. Our churches became hospitals. Our schools became hospitals. Our living rooms and things like that became generals' headquarters. I don't think that's what people really want or need right now. And not only that, so first of all, what does it mean to our members? It means the same thing it means to any other American. Unfortunately, I don't feel like for all the talk of, oh, we need to turn down the rhetoric and so on. I haven't seen any evidence of that happening whatsoever. And, when you have a person that says, I'm going to be a dictator on day one, I don't think any dictators ever stopped on day one. And when somebody tells you what they're going to do, I think you probably ought to believe them. And so with all that being said, I mean, there's so many issues when it comes to policy that affect working people. But the very, very core thing that people need to remember is, like, 45 days here, we have the first test of whether our democracy can sustain itself. And we haven't seen that for 4 years. And then before that, we hadn't seen it for quite some other time. So I mean, that is the first and foremost, most paramount issue. I honestly believe that we face is saving our democracy or republic or whatever people, however people
Right.
want to label it, right?
Because one disturbs the other and vice versa.
I
Something
guess I don't know. I mean, like,
I don't get it either, but it is what it is, right? I mean,
but I mean, like in terms of specific policy things, like you could first of all, I'll be the first to say as disgusting as I find former President Trump's rhetoric and so on. There were a few things that he had the right idea about, right? So I'll admit that from the start here. I think he was right to want to renegotiate NAFTA. He did it in a piss poor way, but it was the right idea. There were some other things. I don't think that tariff is a dirty word. I know some people do, and he talks about tariffs. But absolutely, uh, I mean, look, when the guy does an interview with Elon Musk on, I still call it Twitter and all's will, and he says, "Hey, you're great when you say you're going to fire people that are using their right to strike." That's there's a reason why the UAW has shirts out that say that Trump is a scab. It's like taking away the most fundamental rights that were established back in the 30s, if not more. I mean, and if you want to go into Project 2025, one of the things that I didn't think I'd be doing last year and this year is dealing with child labor law changes,
It's
right? This is
ridiculous.
something that we fought about 140 years ago.
Yeah.
And it just tells me that nothing is ever settled in capitalism.
Yes.
One thing you said back there, and I wanna go back to it just because I've said it before. When he said, "I will be a dictator for a day," I mean, look, he was president for 4 years. He lost fair and square, and he had trouble like letting go of that. Do you think he's gonna go? And I mean, all the people that he looks up to are noted dictators, and you nailed it, man. You said he's not going to go back, and that is a huge fear that I have. Guys, what did you think of what he's just said here?
Well, I agree with Charlie. Boy, I'm sure everyone's shocked to hear that. But you know, the we're talking. I mean, we had fundamental rights taken away from women last time, and because of his actions in the last administration. Currently, you've got um, Tesla and Amazon and a couple of other
Trader
companies.
Joe's is one of them.
Yep, they're suing to basically render the National Labor Relations Board um, it, mute, and where the where the unions would be forced to take the employers to federal court to enforce their contracts. Um, I mean, that's just in all of this stuff. They want to basically take away civil service protections for federal employees, so that the guy sweeping the floor at the Smithsonian Institute is going to be reporting to the president, uh, and will be a political appointment. I mean,
Well, and Dad, actually, don't forget in Iowa here, a lot of our federal employees work at the Rock Island Arsenal, and they work in making a lot of munitions that are going to Ukraine's keeping them pretty busy right now.
yeah. I mean, you could just go on and on, but clearly the guy has a strong man mentality. He wants to be his way and no one else's way, and he's never he's never changed from that. That's just who he is. So to expect that he's going to be any different in this term than the last one, uh, he's going to be worse.
Well, that is the point that everybody's saying. If he was so bad and he was going to ruin the country, how come he didn't do it the first time? And I would argue He tried pretty hard to do
I
it.
think there was a lot of damage done. I really do. I also think we could add into this, if I could just inject here, not only if his first day of office, but if reelected, I worry about his last day in office. I worry about his last day in office because I really believe, having worked with mentally ill adults and children for most of my adult life, so I know a little bit of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about mental illness. I believe the man is suffering from, definitely, at the very least, some form of personality disorder. And I think it's very likely that if reelected, he's going to try to stay in office. He doesn't really give a damn about what the Constitution says. He's made that very clear. I don't think he really understands the Constitution. I wouldn't put it past him to try to stay in power. So that's my 2 cents worth there.
Well, Uncle Russ, you're right, and not only that, the thing I would add, and I think I've talked about this with you, Dad, is like, even a lot of the cabinet people and the folks around him, they, as much as I policy wise disagreed with them, they were serious, and they actually were somewhat of a guardrail on the guy. Even if you go into the last days after he lost the election and everyone's trying to tell him that he didn't, and you had some of his own operatives that he put in charge of the Department of Defense and crap like that. But people like General Milley was like, no, you can't forge Trump's name on this thing to give all this power. So, to the Department of Defense to, I think they were looking to do martial law, right? So I think the dangerous thing about this term, if he has a second term, is that he's now surrounding himself with, the Laura Loomers of the world. And, you want, I don't know, Secretary of Commerce, like Laura Loomer, or, I don't know, she's just the craziest person I can think of, but there's plenty of them out there but that's all that's left in his orbit is people who are the yes people for him. That's the scary part.
Well, this actually was a question that I had on my agenda, and Russ kind of put us in the situation to deal with it now. Russ, you mentioned his last day in office. Well, one of the thoughts I had prepared was, he was quoted as saying, as early as Friday of this week, he told a group of people, if you vote for me this time, we'll fix it so good that you won't have to vote again. Not in 4 years, not ever. Okay? So that's the first part of this. We are all aware that this has been said now multiple times on the campaign trail. This is where I want your guys' thoughts, because I'm kind of perplexed by what I'm about to tell you. Saturday, that was Thursday. This is Saturday. He says, my instruction, we don't need votes. We have so many votes. Why would he say this? There's numerous quotes of him on the campaign trail saying, I don't need votes. I have plenty of votes. Does he think something other than votes is going to determine that he will be president of the United States? I'm going to let our guest take this one first. Go ahead, Charlie.
I have, here's my only thought on this, is that I think that he's getting tired of his staff telling him you're talking like a maniac and you need to tack to the center. You need to quit saying the crazy stuff and start talking about policy. And he's the only candidate I've ever seen just berate a staff from a stage. And I think that's kind of, maybe it's something more serious than that, but I think that's him saying, you know what, I got my base. I can win with the people I got. But it could be something more sinister than that.
I would agree, Charlie. I that's what I got out of that was, I don't need any more votes than what I got already, because, gosh, I won last time. They just stole it from me, and I think that part of it is that I think more and more, though, what I'm seeing he's just saying random shit, and it's coming out. It doesn't make sense to even the people that support him. Certainly doesn't make sense to his staff. And he's not going to do what his campaign staff is telling him. That's clear already, because he's not comfortable. He's not capable of articulating policy. He's capable of doing the fake TV personality show that he took on the road in 2015, and he keeps going further down the rabbit hole, and that's all he's got. That's the only shtick he has, and so he just talks without thinking.
Russell, Uncle Russ,
Yes.
when you mentioned his last day of presidency, is that something that you had in mind, that he might not give up power if he were to?
Yeah. I think that we've already seen that he doesn't support the peaceful transition of power. I expect that he would probably do the same thing again, and maybe even worse. And also, you hear some of his supporters saying things that seem to indicate that they're being mentally prepared for an election denial. They're being prepared. Oh, it was stolen again. Those damn Democrats, they did it again. So, except though, I don't think we're going to have a big uprising like we did on January 6th. I think the state's going to be armed and ready to crush anything that happens to, sprout up after the election,
Can I just go on the record again, just because, I like being proven wrong? I'm gonna say once again, like I did in our first show, I don't think this election's close. I think he's going to lose by so much that he's not going to be able to credibly claim anything about votes being stolen. And I think it's really clear that the gas is starting to run out. You know, he's a car limping along on the side of the road and he's almost out of gas. I don't see his people. I mean, yeah, you got your crazy hardcore supporters, but I just don't see anything major coming out of it. There's not going to be anything. And maybe, just maybe we'll get lucky enough that the quote unquote mainstream Republicans, the very few that are left, will try to just squash any post election nonsense. I hope I'm right.
Now we're a little bit past the halfway point here today. But here's the thing. If he loses and he claims that it's rigged, somebody needs to compile a clip after clip after clip of him saying we don't need votes. And why would you lost because you told people that you didn't need their votes. And now you're sitting here trying to say that it was rigged. You rigged it against yourself, you moron. All right, Charlie, I'm going to come back to you again for the first questions, just since you're our guest. And this is more of a conspiracy-ish type of thing. But
Sure.
I've felt in my heart that we may not know the results of the election this year. What do you think about that?
Oh, I absolutely think we will. So I mean, go talk to your county auditor. Like that, these are the people who actually run your elections. It's not some shadowy people. It's not. It's just your county auditor. I talked to the Polk County auditor about. I'm just curious after the last one. Okay, tell me about election security. I mean, I think I know it pretty well. I mean, it's pretty airtight. If they actually want, I mean, here's the weird thing about it is they can actually they can see when your ballot was cast. They can actually go and look at it if they wanted to, but they don't. There's so many checks and balances on this thing. And their idea of election security is they want to go have 3%ers go scare some old poll watcher ladies. You know, I mean, like, I don't think that elections are really not that hard. They're they're really not. They're pretty easy. And I don't really think that, I mean, I don't see why there would be a reason to be able to count all the votes. Now, if you want to talk about decide the election, if people want to going into January play games when it comes to certifying votes and things like that, sure, maybe. But right now, Kamala Harris is in charge of certifying the Electoral College, and win or lose, I expect she'll do the right thing, like what Al Gore did. He sure as hell did not like to probably do that, but he sure did.
Yeah.
So we do have a comment from the TikTokers, and it's a doozy. I don't know who they're talking to. So this guy is paid by the DNC. All his talking points are written and the same. Scroll through his TikTok.
Well,
I know it's not Uncle. I know it's not Uncle Russ.
No, it's not me.
Tommy.
So
DNC wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole.
So what do you say
Man.
to yourself there, Charlie?
I am waiting for my check. I've been waiting. Where's my check from George Soros? I want my check from the DNC. It's not, I mean, like, that's really, really weak.
I said it in all caps, to be fair.
Oh, well, if it's in all caps. No, I mean, and like, that's the really funny part too. Dad, in your time in politics, you know, the people on the DNC, they're just regular old, just regular people. And the people, and the other thing that gets me was when they say nobody voted for Kamala Harris. There was an entire convention of just regular people that went there and voted for her. There was no problem. There was no, you can't pull off conspiracies like that. It just isn't possible. It's like the moon landing. Sure, every of the 100,000 NASA engineers just kept it a secret.
Right.
And Stanley Kubrick did unbelievable for that many years too. So anyway, if that dude knows where my check is, if he works for the Postal Service, I would like him to find it.
You've been challenged, sir. All right, we're just under the 10-minute mark. Charlie, you mentioned earlier tariffs.
Yeah.
Now, I want to tell everybody my understanding of the economy based on Donald Trump and what he wants to do with tariffs. And I have a feeling that you will probably redirect me on some of these things. To me, a tariff is paid on the incoming goods basically by the consumer once that happens, and that tariffs are not always a bad idea. Like if you're starting up like solar panels, like building solar panels in your country, and you want to put a tariff on imports for that stuff while you're building your power in that instance, so that you can match with the global economy once the tariffs are lifted, it's a fair playing field. To me, that's when a tariff seems like a good idea. But in the way that it's being described by the Trump administration, putting a tariff on everything coming in, just seems like it's going to raise the price for everybody on everything. And since you brought up tariffs earlier, and it kind of got me thinking you had a different opinion of them. Go ahead.
Yeah, here's not a DNC talking point, so they'll have to dock my pay for this. So this is so much not a DNC talk. This is an interesting story. I'll share it really quick. It was on the morning of January 6th, actually, and so I was talking to Secretary Vilsack on the phone. He was going to be the incoming Secretary of Agriculture. And I asked him, I said, can you tell me what the Democratic Party's message on trade is? He's the incoming Secretary of Agriculture, and he didn't have an answer. And I don't blame him, because it's like it's hard to find an actual answer out of it. I mean, I know what I'd like it to be, and it probably matches up more with like what Bernie Sanders does. And I think that there's a role for tariffs and thoughtful trade agreements when it comes to wage protections. It's hard for an American worker to be able to compete with a 18-cent minimum wage in somebody in Vietnam. And I said to Governor Secretary Vilsack, I said, look, here, you want to know why Donald Trump won? And I remember being down in Keokuk, steel castings, they were moving to Mexico at the time. Trump was talking their language. And what were you and the Obama administration out doing? You were pushing the TPP, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have been a really, really, really bad trade agreement for America, for a lot of the reasons I'm talking about it, not just wages, but also as far as corporations being able to have way, way more power than they deserve on the world stage when it comes to let's just say trade agreements. So to sum it up, but so yeah, yes, across the board tariffs is a crazy idea, but you can thoughtfully think through trade agreements with other countries. We do it all the time, but the point is that the American government needs to be doing it for the American people and the American worker and what's best for them, not for multinational corporations. And take Trump out of it, all I've ever seen my entire life since I was born in 1980 is the Republican Party worked for multinational corporations.
Can I jump on that too?
I was going to ask if either of you had a comment there.
Yeah, I agree with about everything Charlie said there. I mean, free trade in a perfect world is absolutely the way to go, in my opinion. But we don't have a perfect world. We do not have, I mean, the free market is an illusion. I believe in markets. I think markets are still the most efficient way to run most things, but they are subject to manipulation, disruption, all these sorts of things. And one of the one of the things no one talks about ever, except those in the labor movement, is a point that Charlie hit on, was that since the 70s and 80s, basically since the U.S. floated the dollar back in 1971, we've had a free flow of capital all over the world. Money can move across international boundaries very, very easily. Labor cannot. And so it creates an unequal equation between labor and capital. And I'm not saying, and until we live in that perfect world where I can go anywhere in the world and work for what I'm worth, until we get to that point, we can't compete against the guy in Vietnam making 18 cents an hour, making shoes or whatever the heck he's doing. And
probably a kid.
Most of these,
probably a kid.
Yeah. And that's the other part, is none of these other countries have any kind of safety, environmental, child labor. I mean, all these protections that the Western democracies have for working people don't exist in a lot of the places we're competing against. So tariffs need to be, and trade policy needs to be a tool that we use to affect change in those places as well as in our own country. Long answer. Sorry.
Uncle Russ?
Yes.
There?
Nothing to add to that. No, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think that the child labor laws is something that I have been thinking more about, because there are certain laws proposed in Iowa which would roll back protections for young workers. And I know Charlie's been very aware of that too. We've got people in the Iowa legislature that just do not support labor at all. You know, they don't support the working people at all.
All right. I'm going to move on to our last topic, and we got about 2.5 minutes to go here.
Wow.
The Supreme Court justices. All right, we know who's there already. My biggest fear of a Trump presidency is that he would implement somehow 3 more justices and just really cripple the country with policy people that just are yes men to Donald Trump. Charlie, is that irrational?
Nope, that already happened. And the other thing I'd say too is there should be term limits. I don't know, maybe even 20 years term limits. And let's expand the court to about 30 people. There's too many legal. There are so many legal viewpoints in this country. I don't think you can encapsulate them in 9 people. And also, we don't need. I think term limits are really important for the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. I actually think the proposal to have each president appoint 2 per 4-year term. That way, no president in 8 years will ever, that's assuming we stay with 9, would ever be able to appoint a majority of the court. But Charlie has a good point too. Even among, I mean, there's, even if you read, I actually read Supreme Court opinions, and if you look at them, there's a lot of nuances and differences even when they're on the same side. And that doesn't always come out in everything. And so having more people on the court would actually be healthy for the country and the rule of law.
I agree.
Yeah, it's clearly not working.
I don't want it bogged down by radical left people, just like I don't want it bogged down by the right.
Yeah.
I very much respect somebody that can go case by case, not using religion as a basis to make decisions. I don't have a problem with people making decisions based on their beliefs, but when it's a religious belief, that's where it freaks me out, man. I hate it. So I'm going to ask one last thing in just quick 10 seconds. If Trump is elected, what is the thing that, I don't want to say scares you because I don't want to put that out there, but what is the one thing that you're most fearful of? We'll start with Charlie, and then we'll go Tom, and then we'll go Russ to end it.
I'm not afraid of him.
Good. Final answer? Tom, what are you fearful of if he is elected?
I'm fearful only that the hole that we have to dig ourselves out of when he's gone will be a lot deeper than it is now. But the country has survived bad presidents. We've survived economic disruptions. We've survived world wars, civil war. We'll survive this as well. So I'm like Charlie. I'm not afraid of him. And keep in mind, he may not have a lot of guardrails in his administration, but we do have, and the courts, obviously, but we still have our elected Congress. And, those people got to worry about getting reelected too.
Hey, the courts are the only place he can't lie his way out of everything and still get 34 counts of being guilty.
That's true.
You can't lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and get away with it. There's at least the courts.
At least that.
And even then, we're still waiting to figure out what that actually means for him. I mean, not just a label that people can call him a name that they couldn't call him before. But We'll see what comes of it. Russ, you can close out the show here.
All right. Nothing to add. The main thing, I don't worry so much about Trump. I do fear that some of his more fringe followers would be greatly emboldened by him winning the office again. Or, some of them are fanatical enough. And I'm not talking about a large group of people, even among the MAGA movement. We're talking about the violent fringe. We're talking about the people, and I've seen the pictures, you've seen them, the people that show up at the Trump rallies, proudly displaying the swastika. And I don't deny that it doesn't happen because we've all seen it You know, you might not think that Trump is a Nazi, but the Nazis think he is a Nazi. So just consider that when you vote.
Yeah, Stonewall Jackson never carried a Confederate flag into the U.S. Capitol, but I tell you, the January Sixers did.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that concludes a third episode of a weird version of the Dames Marv show called whatever you want to call it, but it's basically political talk. And I want to thank our guest today, Charlie Wishman. I sure hope you consider coming back again.
Anytime. It was fun. Absolutely.
Gentlemen, and you on TikTok, brother, I need your sources.
I want my check.
Yeah, what a motherfucking movie check. All right,
Hey,
guys.
if you can get paid by the DNC by parroting their talking points, I'm in. I'll become a Democrat tomorrow. I want that money.
Bobby Kennedy Jr. pays me in bear meat.
Okay.
Whale meat.
All right.
The whale meat. All right.
Whale skulls.
All